So I was pleasantly surprised 2 months ago by the MyStreet Season 7.
Where's Zaneby?
So I was pleasantly surprised 2 months ago by the MyStreet Season 7 trailer. I was of the opinion that Jess was never coming back to roleplays. I'm serious, I thought all the hints were legit just her baiting her old audience with nostalgia. I thought this announcement was gonna be merch with some vague references to MyStreet and MCD at most. That's it. So color me surprised when my coder Lion sent me this while I was rewatching the series one afternoon. Before I go into the nitty-gritty of my overall thoughts on the animation itself, I'll put down a few ground rules for you all so you know where my head's at when I'm making these critiques. I'm not going to make any criticisms of any of the overarching story of the new season that we've seen so far. What that means is any hints of the story for Season 7, I'm not allowed to critique simply because, well, the episodes aren't out yet. I might bring up or make jabs at already talked about plot lines, or if I think something could be done better to convey the story from an animation standpoint, I'll bring it up. This also includes any theories I have for where the story is going to go, because that's completely subjective at this point, and I'd like to be as objective and as helpful as possible when I'm talking about something. Speaking of objectivity, anything I feel couldn't be objective, I'll state as much. Things you like and dislike about art are completely subjective, but I feel like there are always objective ways to improve art. So I'll mainly start with things about the animation that I subjectively think is bad and try to come up with objective ways to fix it with the knowledge of art and animation that I have. I'm not attacking any of the animators or creators that worked on this. That includes Jess and Jason. Kind of a no-brainer for a video like this, but don't be an ass. Don't go insulting anyone in the comments. Art is supposed to be fun. I know I already put the disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but I'm doing it here because I know some of you motherfuckers can't read. Again, this video is mostly subjective, and anything I say is not gospel. Got it? No? Good. Let's get started. One thing I want to talk about first is the colors. Colors are of course very important to art and animation. I don't know if you've noticed. Because AFMO is mainly a kids channel now, of course she's going to try and lure her audience in with seemingly impossibly bright and saturated colors. Now of course there's nothing inherently wrong with using bright and eye-catching colors for this purpose, but holy fuck! So many of these colors are so impossibly bright that it's distracting to the point that actually important things that we're supposed to be looking at on screen are made less prominent. The flowers are so close to us, the camera, and are so bright that they stick out almost as much as the main characters. Our eyes naturally look down at the bottom row of flowers rather than the actual important thing that's happening, which is our two main characters walking. An easy fix would be to make actual groups of flowers instead of singular flowers poking out of the ground. Flowers typically don't grow in singularity like this anyway. Or you could just not have the flowers. It makes Aaron and Aphmau stand out better. Speaking of our titular main characters, fun fact, I turned off all the values and Aphmau blends into the background. Aaron sticks out more than she does, and she's the main character of the story. Using a darker, cooler color like Aaron's black, dark gray would probably help her not blend into the background at all. Or do the reverse and make the colors in the background less saturated and darker. You see this a lot in anime. The background artist, when they're drawing nature, will often use blues and other cool colors to make a sort of contrast, making the backgrounds look less dull. I state this because it seems to be a problem across the entire animation. Now, some of this could not be helped, but that is a problem in of itself. Saturated colors, especially saturated skin tones and clothes, have been a problem with Jess's works for a while now. Like I said, I'm not going to harp on the old designs too much because those aren't subject to too much change. But I want to point this out because of how long it's been a problem, even before it became a fully animated series. And of course, the fix is just using Jess's real skin tone and just dulling the colors overall. There's also minor inconsistencies with the coloring of the eyes I've noticed. I don't know why, but sometimes the character's eyes will just reflect or just be the wrong color. I don't know if this is a style choice, but I thought it was worth mentioning. It's super minor though. Moving on to the most decisive part of the animation, the art style. More specifically, the way the characters' body types look. Now this whole time I've been drawing my own rendition of an art style that I think fits with what Jess and Jason might want using what I've noticed about their animation over the years and their budget. While fixing some of the issues I and a few other people had, I also wanted to bring up the storyboard's art style, which is a lot better than the final product if you don't like my rendition. It's simple, very cute, and most importantly very expressive, so I'm not against a Minecraft-esque style. style, that's not the problem, but I feel like these models walk right on that uncanny valley line. The feminine characters especially looked off with their forced hips and breast, the enlarged heads, and weirdly the eye sclera sinks into the heads but the irises are pushed out. It's such an uncanny look, and it probably would have been better to make it all a flat surface and easier to animate as well. The legs and arms seem to be operating differently. While the arms are disconnected from the body, the legs aren't, often causing the hips to look fleshy and tumorous when they twist inwards. To combat this, I made a sort of more realistically proportioned character with a semi-cubed face based on the other animation style for the Afmao Shorts content farm. If I'm being brutally honest, I don't know why they don't just make the show in this style. If the concern is that it's too cutesy and the audience won't take the plot seriously, then my counter-argument would be magical girl anime and just anime in general, really. Anime has been mastering the idea of cute art styles with serious plots for decades. I also suggest to heavily stylize the eyes. However, if I could go back, I'd probably make them bigger. But the point is that they could be interchanged and styled to the character. It's not super important or an objective rule, but I do like to give each of my characters personal stylized eyes because it helps me give them more personality. But you can have characters with the same general eyes while giving them loads of personality. It's not all one factor, it's a lot of turning very carefully placed gears that make up a good character design. There's also random points in the animation where characters, specifically Eren, will just have realistic cloth on their clothing. It sticks out so much because besides two other instances, that being Blaze's shirt being put on top of the model, and Casey's bow, which arguably shouldn't be a flat surface, all the other clothing is painted on the model, including Zane's mask, which, while yes, is on top of the model, technically isn't HD. Arguably, this isn't a stylistic choice, but it's a choice that's a visual element of the characters, so I'll mention it. There's also some points where they just didn't bother giving the characters fully HD skins. Of course, with the suggestions, I gave them actual clothes instead of clothes just painted on the character. I don't expect these to move realistically. I actually don't recommend it. I'm not saying this because I think Jess is going to use this design, I'm just saying for example, but because of how stylized everything else is, it also would just be a massive pain in the ass. And the final thing in regards to the art style, the blush.
Why are all the female characters so red? Oh my god!
There's no real reason to add the blush. It doesn't make the characters more appealing or cute, it just feels like a distraction. It draws our eyes to the face, sure, but only because it's so obnoxious. It's very loud looking, for a lack of better term. This is especially true for the darker skinned characters, oh my god. I hate to be harsh over something like this because for some of you it probably seems very minor. However, I want to reiterate what I said earlier about character design, even art in general, that it's a machine of very carefully placed gears. One off gear can put a really big dent in your efficiency. If they wanted to make a cute design, you can make a design look cute just from already established design philosophies, like shape language, color theory, or just through expressive animation and dialogue. Forcing a cute thing makes the cute thing objectively not cute. It's science. Cuteness is subtle and it's potent when you get it right. Some other minor things that bother me that aren't necessarily a problem with the art style and are subjective qualms. Others are just genuine issues, but these mistakes begin to stack and it begins to reflect poorly on the animation quality. And because of how seemingly random they are, I don't know where else I'd bring them up. There's this weird haze over the characters' eyes that seem to change and reflect to colors that are unnatural to their original ones. Men don't have eyelashes. I don't know why, because last time I checked, men have eyelashes. Those are technically just personal non-issues. The more objective problems are, for some reason, Kai has werewolf ears and seems to be missing his ears in the photo as well. Going back to Casey's bow, it seems to have the same issue her original bow had, and just decides to be transparent from some angles. Michi's tail and ears are gone, along with a slew of other minor problems that I won't mention, but I will put up on screen or we'll talk about later. I'll sort out which is objective and which is subjective. You can pause to read my reasons. Now finally, we get to the animation. I actually think it's pretty good for the most part. Most of the time, the animation is zippy and well-timed when focusing on the main characters and the focal point of the shots. The characters move slowly, the comedic and action-heavy moments are well-timed. The use of squash and stretch is implemented well, although sometimes there's moments where the body language and movement looks really awkward. Like when Casey is running in the background, her animation is extremely slow for some reason and it gives a very floaty, awkward impression while everyone else is running normally. Or when she's walking in the school hallway, her hands are hunched over and stretched weirdly, but everything else is really bouncy and pleasant to look at. Stay with me because this next point is going to seem like a minor complaint, but there's a bigger point I'm going to make. The moment where Aaron and Af jump through the window, the glass shattering. It's very obviously made with default and pre-made settings. The glass shattering looks random and the window glass is chunky. The first thing you think wouldn't be a problem, but I promise, stay with me. I'm not a 3D animator, but I believe they use a default animation setting. Glass starts shattering with bigger chunks to littler chunks. Stay with me! I point this out because the glass shatters so much that a good few chunks just cover the characters' faces. That's a problem because the focal point of the shot is their faces. They take the time to slow down the shot to show how happy they are in this major point in the series, and the massive glass chunks in front of them distract from that. Hell, the storyboard artist seems to have understood that, which means I can only assume they used some very default settings and did nothing more with it. Sometimes taking that extra step really helps an animation look perfect. Little things that don't quite look right or aren't thought out can really add up and overshadow some of the genuinely good work you put in. I honestly don't know how to conclude this video without making it sound like a college essay, to be honest with you guys. But I do have one more concern that's not really a part of the animation itself, but something Jason himself mentioned. And that's the fact that these models are up for change and open to criticism. Which, I'm sorry for my bluntness, but no, they're not. Not if you actually want the show to be out by late 2025, they're not. There's just no feasible way I see this episode being done in less than a year if they're still making changes, especially if the episodes are 20 to 30 minutes long. However, I still made this video for both those that want to learn and on the off chance that Catface is okay with delaying season 7. Which is not a thing to be ashamed of. Taking time to make a good product is admirable and important. Catface has the luxury to take their time, so why not utilize it? And that goes for any other indie artist in general, honestly. Let's normalize that process, please. Now, before I go, please, I have stickers. I have a Ko-Fi. Preferably, I'd like you to buy stickers because you actually get something out of it. And I'll be adding more merch and it'll be so cool, but if that doesn't interest you, please support me on Ko-Fi if you want Zambi and other content to continue. I need money, so please. That's all I have to say. I've said this before, I don't know how to end videos, so buy my stickers!